Only God could rescue me. Only God could set me free. Only God. Only God. Only God. Hello, welcome to Only God Rescued Me. I'm Lisa Meister, your host. And today I'm very happy to bring to you a survivor, Jessica. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello.
And I'm really glad that you're able to come and share with us today. And I was wondering if you could start with what your childhood was like growing up. What was it like for you? What do you remember?
I grew up in a Baptist church and everything seemed like it was normal. We were a good Christian family. I went to school every day, but as far as like in the home, it's really weird because I did not comprehend this as abuse, but like there was a lot of like my dad would scream a lot and then he would just call us names all the time. He was just angry and um my mom would get in between and kind of try to calm him down all the time. And there was lots of physical abuse and just mental and emotional and like kind of a he took on kind of a divide and conquer the kids mentality. Um I actually don't really remember being home a lot. I remember more of being at school or playing at friends' houses more than I do my own house. We had a lot of foster kids and daycare kids in our house throughout the years. I guess like it's weird because when I think about my childhood, I can remember how I felt in certain circumstances, like very strong emotions, but I don't remember what actually was happening around me. So I think I dissociated a lot and didn't really know what that was. And I had nightmares pretty much almost daily of my life, and they were pretty horrifying. I actually remember a lot of my nightmares, and some of them were of me trying to run my dad over with a car. So like I would be terrified that why would I be dreaming that I was trying to kill my dad or that he was chasing me?
Did you have any recurring nightmares that you remember?
Yes, I would have nightmares for days on end that would go straight like one right after the other. And they would be like, so like I'd have one part of the dream, then the next night I'd have another part of the dream. And it usually was like something really terrible happened. So like one of them, my mom was like, your dad lost his eyes, and then she's like this, and then tried to like poke out my eyes in my dream. Or like I'd have dreams of like being forced to hurt one of my foster siblings, trying to kill them, like I was forced to kill them, or like people would come in and like in black costumes and try to get me to do things, or like I'd be hiding in the ceiling and they'd find me. Like I just always had nightmares like that, or just being forced to like cut people's arms off or something weird.
Very ritual specific type dreams.
Yeah, I think now I know that, but as a kid I didn't really know that. I just was always having nightmares like that.
Wow.
And being for usually it was me being forced to hurt somebody in my dream, or yeah. So it was pretty crazy, and that was pretty much every day that I would have nightmares.
How
And then
many brothers and sisters did you have?
so I had 7. I had 3 older siblings, and then my parents adopted 4 siblings. Probably we had them for foster kids for a while. Like my two older adopted siblings, they were foster kids since they were little, like 2 and 3, I think, when we got them. But I don't think the adoption went through until they were like 10 or something, if I remember right. I can't remember. So I was a teenager by the time all of the adoptions went through with all four of them.
Now, your dad obviously didn't like kids. So, what was the idea, do you think, behind all these foster kids and adoptions?
It's really weird because I don't know. I think it was the money. And at one point, somebody had said, I think you're doing this for the money. And my parents were so offended because, like, another family member had said that. And I think they were very offended that somebody would say that.
Yeah,
Other than
because
there's some suspicions there, and there's some suspicious behavior and things that were said, because I don't feel like it was out of love. Even when they had them there, they were really my parents would keep them downstairs. So like our family would get together, my older siblings and their kids would come over, and they would do like penny poker night, and we would all be upstairs, and they'd make my siblings go downstairs and watch all the nieces and nephews, and they were never allowed to really be a part of anything. So they were very mistreated,
wow.
and we were trained to mistreat them. It's like I grieve over that because I love them dearly, and I just think that they were not treated the same, and I'm just sad about that.
Sure. So, how did the memories come up for you then?
So the memories that I started to have came up like they started as flashes in my head. I had just had my fourth baby, and he was probably 3 months old or 2 months old or something. And I started having all these like really gory images in my head that were just like flashing, and it was like everywhere, or like chopped up parts on a cutting board. And I'm sorry, this is really gross, and just like all of these terrible images were just flashing in my head, and I didn't really know what was going on, and I was starting to have just panic attack after panic attack after panic attack. Then I started having, like, I would see my son in the swing, and I would just see him like turn purple. He wasn't turning purple, but in my head I would see like he's this purple baby, but then I'd hear, you just need to choke him. You need to choke him and kill him. And I was
Wow.
like, what is going on? And so like I was having these urges to hurt my baby, and then all these flashes in my head, and I was panicking, and I couldn't really I couldn't at that point, I did not feel safe to be alone with my kids. So I had to have help. And a friend of mine introduced me to this lady who does deliverance ministry, and I can't remember for sure if I had met her before or after, but at one point I was pretty catatonic and laughing uncontrollably for no reason. And my husband was scared, and he had brought me to the hospital. And then they ended up checking me into a psych ward, and I was there for probably over a month. And then I was very heavily medicated, and I think it was after, and then I ended up shortly after I saw her, then my parents took me on a trip to Montana with my dad's two of my aunts. And I must have known something about what happened to me, because she was just doing family history stuff with me and asking me my family history, and had asked about Freemasons in my family, and I had found out that my uncle was a Freemason and my grandpa was a Freemason. And then I I just saw her more often, and then I my husband was with me every time, so he would be able to answer better than I would probably. But I I would go into her office, and she'd pray with me, and then she would just ask things like, "When was the first time you felt this way or that specific feeling?" Because she would ask me how I'm feeling, and then I'd like say like, "This is what's happening in my body." And then she asked, "When's the first time that you felt that way, or when's the first time you believed that lie or something?" And that's when, like, I started to have my first real memory was in her office about, and that was my dad's side, my grandpa, his second wife used to babysit me. And it's weird because I have to back up a little bit. A couple years before I started remembering things, she had passed away. And I remember brushing my teeth, and I was sad about her passing away because I was always told how much she loves me and that I was her favorite. And I was brushing my teeth, and then all of a sudden I got this terrible feeling that came over me, and I was like, what if I had remembered her unbuttoning my pants. And then I was like, what if she did something to me? And then instantly I was like, shame on you for thinking that she didn't do anything to you. And then I just pushed it out of my mind. And then after like 2 years later, that then I'm starting to remember that she did unbutton my pants and she did do stuff to me. And I was told by my mom that she probably unbuttoned my pants because I had a bellyache. And then I found out that my sister, who I was very close with, had told me that I need to be very careful about what I say about people because I could get them in big trouble because I was telling my mom that she had unbuttoned my pants. And so it
Wow.
was inappropriate that I had said that to my mom. And so I got in trouble. And then my mom, I think that they actually used my to punish me for that. And
Wow.
so,
That was a big thing for your sister to say. That's a silencing message there.
yes, yeah.
How old were you when these flashes started? When your fourth son was born?
So
Fourth child?
I I was between 28 and 30, I think, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah. So,
And so
had you had sexual abuse memories before then, or then was this just the
no,
first that came out? Wow.
I didn't have any sexual abuse memories. That actually was really a lot harder for me to remember.
Really?
I still have not, like, I have remembered things, but I am very dissociated when I remember it. And I think it just was a lot. I'm not, that's really hazy for me. I did have signs of it because when I was in first grade, there was a boy I liked in my class, and I was having really strong urges about wanting to have sex with him in first grade.
Wow.
So I mean there were signs that I was being sexually abused. I just didn't know that. And so and then I also had like a diary when I was probably in fourth grade, third or fourth grade, maybe. And I was drawing like pictures of naked boys and stuff in there, which is not normal for a kid that age. But I didn't know any, I didn't know that it was wrong or anything.
Right.
And then I also had gotten my period when I was in fourth grade. So I was really young.
Wow. Yeah.
And I actually hid it. I didn't tell anybody about that. That was really hard for me because I was so afraid and ashamed. I had a lot of shame when I was little. And I I hid it, and I would use toilet paper. And it took until it got to where it was, like, really heavier. It was, like, a couple years later where I finally told my sisters that I had it, and my one of my sisters said I got it before she even got it,
Wow.
and my mom knew the whole time but never talked to me about it. Like, she knew that I had it but never acknowledged it or talked to me about it.
Huh. Strange. The
Yeah.
inner workings of these occultic families are just fascinating to hear. Just how they talk, how they punish, how they get people to tell on each other, what the moms know and what they don't acknowledge. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, because I think my mom knew a lot, but I also think my mom dissociates a lot, so it's hard to tell, like, how much she just has blocked out because it's just too hard, and she's just operating in parts a lot, I think.
Right. So what are they responsible for, or what
Yeah.
are they just I don't want to deal with that, so I'm just not going to.
Yeah, that's really hard, and I think over time, I think the Lord has just really been working on me to accept the fact that she chose my dad over her kids, and she has continually chosen my dad over her kids, and she's chosen that lifestyle over her kids.
Right.
And so I that's been really hard for me to accept because I want to make excuses for them. I want to make excuses for both of them because I know they both grew up in abuse, but so did I, and I didn't do that.
I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. That we want to find a way to give them a pass, but unless they walk out of it, I don't think we can,
Yeah.
because they're making choices, and we can't just say, well, they're just dissociated all the time because we walked out. So, why do some walk out and some don't? Because there's choices that are being made.
Yeah, and just like when your heart is hard and you refuse to hear anything, like
Hmm.
I'm not a very combative person. And I went back and I looked at some of the letters I had written to them when I confronted their behavior. I was really kind and gentle with them, and it still just didn't go well. And they refused to acknowledge anything. I don't think that you can have much more of an easier pass than I was giving them, and they just weren't willing to take that. So,
Well, you have that, but then you also have the toxic family system on an everyday basis that you had growing up, even without the other abuse added into it.
yeah, so even that has been severely minimized in my family. Everybody laughs it off and says, "Oh, that's just dad," or "Oh, that's just how things were." But nobody's allowed to talk about anything real, and everybody silences each other because we all know we're going to get in trouble if we say anything. And my dad sits at the top, and it's weird because he's not even the communicator. My mom's usually the one that communicates with everybody, but
I see this in occultic family systems where the main perpetrator doesn't really do a lot of communicating, and everybody else that's still in twirls around him and silences everybody else and stands up for that person, and they just sit there and let everybody else do that. It's fascinating to watch, but it's universal that the main
yeah.
perpetrator in the family, and I don't know if they're there directing everybody or if everybody's already been programmed that this is what we do, but that's the system and that's how it works.
So what's interesting about that is in one of my counseling sessions, this is with a totally different counselor, but I had done some EMDR, and one of the things that during that EMDR session, like I had seen myself playing with these Legos, and then I had seen my dad like watching me. And then I saw my dad growing, like he had consumed the entire room. So I had nowhere to go. Like I was trying to like play with my Legos by myself, but my dad's eyes and him were everywhere. And that's what I have believed is that there's nowhere to go where my dad won't know something. So it was just like in my mind, I just really believe, like my parts really believe that my dad has all the control and he's everywhere and he's bigger than all of it. That's
I
obviously not true, but
no,
that's,
but
I
it's
think, just,
it's programmed in
yeah.
to all of us. I think 'cause my dad died last April, and things started falling off of me because he was gone. Like I always slept at the very tip edge of the bed, is like I could easily fall off. And then all of a sudden I started sleeping farther in. I'm like, why am I doing this? And then it just popped in because he can't slip into bed without me knowing. And I'm like, you're kidding. After all these years, I hadn't even seen him since 2006. It's like after all these years, he still had that much of a hold on me. And then other things started falling off the same way. And it made me really angry that even though I've been going through so much healing, so much prayers, so much counseling, and I've really worked hard, that programming, there was areas that I hadn't found and I hadn't touched and I wasn't aware of. But yeah, that, he could still walk in my house, and slip into my bed with my husband there, which we know can't happen. But deep inside, I still believe that it could.
Yes, I totally relate with that. I actually often sleep on the very edge of my bed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember I remember I would like stuff myself in between the mattress and the wall to like hide.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the
And always
time.
sleep on the side facing out of the bed, you
Yep,
know? And my husband's like, why do you always sleep that way? I was like, because my shoulder hurts, because if I'd sleep on the other side, my shoulder would hurt. And then we'd go to a hotel and then the other side would hurt. So I'd have to sleep on, because we switch
yep,
sides of the bed. It's like, oh, my other shoulder hurts. And then it's like, oh, I just need to sleep facing the outside of the bed. That's what's going on. But it was a safety thing. No one's slipping in this bed without me knowing. Right.
yep, yep.
And it's like, oh, there's a lot of programming there that he is this omnipotent person, like you're saying,
Hmm.
and they're not, but it's so programmed in.
Yes, yeah. And like I just my body responds to things and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. Would you please
Oh,
catch up to my mind and what I know? But
yep, yes, please.
yeah, but it makes you so angry.
I just
Anyway,
think it,
yeah, it's coming against us in a way that comes to our core and it shouldn't.
yes.
And they're
And
stripping
it just
safety.
steals, yeah, it steals things from you. And I've been working on feeling anger because I've been like very dismissive for a very long time. And I think that's part of my journey right now is just the Lord's like, you need to feel your anger because you should be angry. But that's
Yes.
scary for me.
Oh, yeah. 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 Because anger equals for me, my dad. That's him.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not what I want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And healing is all about catching up with your emotions. And that means all the emotions. You need the whole deck of them. You're like, not that
Yes.
card. I refuse to pick that card up. And then it's like, no, I need to. And it's, so start being angry at him. And that one actually came very easily when he died.
Well, that's good to know. I think I've been off and on having anger, and then for the longest time, it was just so much like compassion for them because I felt like, oh, I hurt them by saying this, and it's hurting our family by saying these things. And really, I mean, I'm not loving myself by like just continually turning a blind eye to how I've been hurt.
Oh, but that's programming too, because
Yeah,
in their mind control, everything was to your hurt to protect the family.
yeah,
And that's their whole goal. And so what you're doing now is exposing because you're asking questions, you're making boundaries, you're distancing from them for your safety and the safety of your family, which you have to do. But that is exposing them and their evilness, their malevolence. And that goes against all the programming of you need to be hurt so they look good. And so
yeah,
you're silent so they look good so nobody knows what they've done.
yeah.
It's
And just
crazy.
keeping it all inside. You got to keep it all inside, and you take like all of the different parts that carry different parts of pain because I had to function and go to school.
Yep. Keep swallowing it. You keep
Yep.
swallowing it and stay silent. We don't care how hurt you get, how sick you get. Just take it. Yeah. And so now you don't have to, which feels wrong, right?
Yes, very, very. Every time I'm like, my gosh, this is like completely like forcing yourself to do the complete opposite of how you feel is so hard.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, to break that, that's what it takes.
And I don't think for people who are not survivors listening, to express how much courage it takes to go against that mind control, to break that, to go against that programming is terrifying. And the breaking that mind control is like her whole brain is vibrating with what is right and can this be true? And you're just shifting all over the place. It's like a traumatic brain injury, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and just what your body's doing and like everything in your system is telling you the opposite of what your logical brain says. My body, for whatever reason, I profusely like if I'm doing something a little bit stressful, I will like sweat through my clothes 100 times over every time because I'm like trying to get myself past the body reaction, but I like just my logical brain will know the truth, but then my body's like, nope, I'm in complete survival mode and
and that's not normal.
no.
Not normal at all. So this PTSD or complex PTSD is a very difficult thing to go forward in life with because those normal stressors are not normal to us. To us, a stressor is no, and you go into this dramatic, my life may be over right now mode to deal with the stress.
And it's little things like I had to say so I'm on a search group for my church to find a pastor and I had to like say what my opinion was of somebody and I was in so much distress because that is me using my voice and all the things that I was trained not to do and my body's responding and I was sweating through my clothes and all the things and I'm like I literally feel like I'm gonna die, and it's really like and these are people I trust, and I know that they're gentle, and I know they are loving, but my body is like, "No, this you're gonna die."
Yeah, yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah. And you just got to pray yourself through, talk yourself through, and God bless our husbands. They're there patting us on the leg and,
Yep.
trying to calm us down. Yeah, it's tough. Tell me about the electric box with your dad.
Oh, yes. Um, I had memories years ago or yeah, several years ago, I had some memories of being electrocuted. Like I was on a table and I was electrocuted and over again. And it was my, I think it was like my grandpa and uncle and my dad. And I was on a table. They were like doing that, and then like it, like to the point where I was like foaming at the mouth. And they would ask a question or something and then write down a number, like call out a number or something. Like I think they were naming like a maybe like an altar or something that they were trying to create. They'd name it a number and then write it in this little book. And then they would do it again and then just keep doing that and then ask me certain questions. And if I answered the way they wanted me to, then they would stop, but if I didn't, it would continue. And anyway, so I kind of was like, that could not even be possible. They would never have access to anything like that. I must be crazy out of my mind. This is not real. There's no way possible this is real. And then like a year and a half ago, I was helping my parents move and my dad showed me this black box. He's like, go get that black box over there. I went and got the black box and he's like, "Open it up." He's like, "This is a ancient experimental medical device. They called it a quack machine from the 1800s. I got it from my great grandfather or something like that." And I open it up and it's an electric. fusion device, like apparently in the Victorian period or something. I looked it up. I actually found one on eBay. And so I have like a picture of one that looks similar to the one my dad had. I open it up and my dad's like, "Do you want to try it out? It's good for arthritis and things like that. It's not going to hurt you." And so at this point, my heart's racing and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I'm like, "Okay, I have proof that the memory I had is real." He literally has this shock machine and he's telling me to try it out. And then it was really weird because then he sat down, like he was sitting in this chair, and then he starts like laughing, ha 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 ha. And I said, what's so funny? And he's like, ha ha, never mind. It's just really kind of mean. And then I'm like, what? And he's like, ha ha ha. Well, when yours gets here, we should use that to shock her brains. And so I just froze and was like, okay. And then I shut the box and didn't say anything. And I was just I was at their house by myself. And I had had my other was there before, like the day before. And he didn't pull any of that stuff out. But as soon as I was there by myself, then he pulls this out. And I didn't have a car. That was really dumb of me. I should not have put myself in that situation, but I did because I thought that I was pretty strong and could handle it. I guess I didn't really think that I was going to be there alone that long. And so my other sister ended up getting there the next day, but I went to bed that night and I had not felt this way in a long time, but I was like hiding under the blankets and I literally felt like I had black eyes all around me. I was so scared because I
Sure.
thought they were watching me and I wanted to tell my husband, but I felt like I can't tell my husband because they're watching me.
Yeah.
And so I think that was programming that kicked in
Sure.
to believe that I can't talk. And so I did text my husband, but I was hiding under all the blankets, hoping that they couldn't see me.
Wow.
And I was so scared. Yeah, so that's what he had. And then I had gone home, like also while I was there, I had been going through some pictures and my dad had said to me, like my parents brought up what happened. Okay, so the first memory I had, I gotta kind of backtrack a little bit. The first memory I had with my grandpa's second wife,
Before you go
she
back, with the electric box memory, so he was reprogramming. Do you think he was threatening you also? What all do you think he was trying to accomplish with bringing that out? Because you had been talking a bit, that you remembered.
Yeah, so that's really hard for me because I can make assumptions, but I think he was triggering me on purpose just because nobody else was there. And like, why did he use that for me? And I have a specific memory about being electrocuted. I feel like when you do things like that, you can only keep it at bay for so long before it has to come out again. And so I feel like he had that moment where it was like, I can't contain myself. I need to do this to her. Like he wanted to do that to me. And he wanted to do that to my because he is it.
Like he wanted to shock you again, you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think there was some gloating? Look what I did to you. I want you to know.
No, I don't know. That's really hard to tell. There's been times when he's been gloating in the past when I cut them off, when I had cut off my parents for a time. He was in the hospital and I had like put myself in a bad situation again and I went up there with my kids because my husband couldn't come and I was in the hospital and he was just saying some things about like on the news there was a story about this guy who had done something to some kid. Like I think there was like a rape story or something and he looked at me and was like, "I can't believe the monsters out there," or something like that, because it was like a, "You're saying I'm a monster type thing. Because they always kept saying how I keep saying they're a monster, which at the time I had not ever said that. I just said what I remembered. And so they equated that as I was calling them a monster. And so, like, he would gloat, like, things like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah. Hmm. That's just shocking that he would bring that box out to you.
yes, yeah, I think it was really weird because he brought that out, and then that evening we were looking through pictures, and then I found a picture of a cave. Did I say that already? I found a picture of a cave that I found out that my grandpa had a construction company, and I had all these memories of rituals being done in caves, which were the other memories that I was still refusing to believe were true. I was like, there's no way that happened. But I mean, I remember, like, I don't know if this is right or not, but I remember I had a baby in a cave and they took the baby. And I and I remember my grandpa also being in a cave with me at one point in time and doing some sort of rituals in there. But I found out that my grandpa had a construction company. I have a picture of him inside of a cave
Wow.
that they had dug. So I'm like, okay, that was the Lord confirming for me again that I'm not crazy and that these things are possible.
That's the thing about survivors of SRA is that we don't want to believe and that we have to validate. We have this thing, there's no way that happened. I have to validate it. And then we do. I mean, how crazy is it that you find out, oh, he just happened to have people in the family that dig caves? Who has that? I've never even heard of that before. And that we go to that extreme to prove it to ourselves. And that we can is just amazing.
Yeah, I it's really weird because I feel like as much as I opened doors to my parents again and I suffered a lot by having them back in my life and having to shut the door for a second time.
So
It was a lot of
why would
suffering
you
for me.
open it again? What would cause you to open it again?
So my ended up after probably like a year and a half of not talking with one of my because we were in this is kind of a lot, but we were in a cult together for like 4.5 years, and there was a psychiatrist that later I found out he took my to this guy who called himself a major prophet of God, and he was into the 10 lost it was like a Hebrew roots movement, and he was definitely a cult leader, and he supposedly delivered my she had this big deliverance, and she had always struggled with like schizophrenia and all these things and like a lot of demonic stuff in her life, and she was in a really dark place, and the psychiatrist she was seeing brought her there. And then I found out that the psychiatrist was my psychiatrist. So he had known my parents ahead of time. I did not know that until years later. And then he also knew my uncles, my mom's side of the family. And both sides of my family actually were involved in all of the abuse, like my mom's side and my dad's side. I have memories with everybody and all my cousins and everything. It's crazy because the whole thing was happening, and then I had gotten out of the cult, but I had not had relationship with either one of my because my oldest ended up following the cult and like the psychiatrist and taking his side because he did stuff like he was doing very bad things to like he had sexually assaulted my there was a court case and all kinds of stuff, but my oldest took his side and she stayed in. And then my during that time the only contact I had was with my brother, and I had was just real, and I think my mom was texting me because I didn't block them. I didn't really know how to manage that, but I was in counseling and my counselor was kind of helping me have good boundaries and stuff, and I wasn't talking to anybody on the phone. But then I ended up my thyroid wasn't doing well because I forgot to say the first time I started having memories, my thyroid was also not good in a good place. So, like, I had postpartum thyroiditis after my fourth baby. That's when I started having memories. I think that triggered all of the memories because my body was just under a lot of stress and my birth was really stressful. So, I think that, like, how sometimes you have trauma and then that also creates you to have like memories come because of the trauma on your body. So I think that's kind of what happened with my when I had my fourth baby. But then when I had my seventh baby, my thyroid went out of whack again, but it wasn't as bad. But for whatever reason, I had this belief like, my gonna make it better. So I got a hold of her and talked to her, and we were slowly working on having a relationship again. And throughout that time, there was just a lot of, I think most of the time when I talked to her, she would kind of like end the conversation with a, like, well, I don't really remember any of what you're saying happened. And so it was just a lot of like discounting what I was saying happened, and like I didn't have grounds to not be in relationship with my parents. And so I think over time that kind of wore me down, and like and even like I had my eighth baby, and then I had posted the birth video on Facebook, and then she's like, "You need to take that down. That's really hurtful to mom and dad because they weren't there." And I'm like, "Well, they made the choice by not telling the truth." But there's just a lot of that kind of in the background with her. And then I, over time, for whatever reason, I just like I had prayed about it. And then my counselor was like, well, a, you have distance. So if you let them back in a little bit, it's not gonna, like, you're not putting your family in danger. But I don't think she really stood SRA and how the families work. And so I ended up letting them back in right when my daughter, she was 5. She ended up having cancer and went through all of that. And then my parents and my oldest, who I hadn't seen in so long, showed up at the hospital right after my daughter had her kidney removed. And I was in such a vulnerable place that I wasn't thinking well. And I did pray about it. And I know God protected me either way, but it just really opened the door, and they kind of came in. And it was really weird because throughout that whole time, my mom, like, she didn't call me and say, "How are you doing?" or offer any sort of comfort or care, but like she would post on Facebook all these pictures of my daughter. And then people would be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be so hard for you." And so she got all the it sounds so terrible, and may not be even close to like what really was happening, but I just was like, it's really weird that there's no like care for me during that time, but I don't know. I just thought that was weird.
Yeah.
I think that my life at that time when I didn't have contact with them, I was really growing in the Lord. I was in a really good church. I had really good friends. I was learning a lot, and like really a lot of things were just falling off, like from the cult we were in, a lot of the bad ways of thinking, and I just all of that stuff I think was starting to go away. And then I I ended up just opening that door, and then it just all started coming back. And it's weird because it's not that it all just comes back, but it's a very slow process where you start taking on the same place that you were at before, because I can't manage to get out of that cycle by myself when everybody else is insisting you stay in that place. So like, bad company corrupts good character, right? That's what the word says. And I, over time, was just going back to the same patterns that God had delivered me from. But it was hard to see, but like I was slowly compromising all of the boundaries that I had in place. and then going back and like having the same mindset that I knew that God had delivered me from before. So just really like for me, I regret that because I think it's done me like I've just had to suffer more pain because now I've had to cut it off again. And they were able to slowly reprogram a lot of those same reactions in me that I had before. And so when I had to cut them off after my dad pulled out that machine, I went through all of the like flooding memories and all of that stuff all over again. And
Wow.
just a lot of like suicidal thinking, not really suicidal thinking, but like parts of me were like trying to hurt me or other things that I'm like, I don't even know why this is happening, but like my logical brain was not like I was not even almost able to access my logical brain for a while.
Well, he certainly kicked off some programming for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
don't even know if I answered your question and I kind of went into a whole loop. I'm sorry.
No, no, that was very good. So, how has God helped you on your journey?
So God has always protected me and like even as a little kid, I don't know when I was saved, but I think I just knew who he was. Like, I don't remember the exact time or moment that I accepted Christ, but I just knew who he was. And I don't know that like anytime I was really afraid, I would just pray and God would like do something. Like this is really stupid, but I had this dog that I walked when I was a kid and I he had gotten off the leash because he would always more or less take me for a walk because I was so little and the dog was really big. And I took him to the park. He got off the leash and I didn't know what to do because I was little. I was probably like fourth grade or something. And I was like, Lord, help me to find something in my pocket to like get this dog. Like, please, like, I don't know what to do. And I was just praying to God that he would help me because I was so afraid. And then all of a sudden I look down and there's a tennis ball right by my feet. And so
Wow.
I like give the dog the tennis ball and I caught him and put him back on the leash and everything. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. But like, just like, not that that didn't happen all the time or anything, but it was just like, I know that I was saved, but like, I was also very confused because I grew up in the church, but then we were doing rituals in the church in the basement. My everyday life did not remember that until I was an adult. But now that I look back, I'm like, yes, I was very confused about many things all the time. And like it was just like, we're gonna say we're this, but really we're this. It was just I lived in a lot of confusion all the time.
So, how did you figure out God was good?
So just little things that he would do there. And then like I went through a rebellious phase in my teens where like kind of my young adult life where I started drinking and then I was very promiscuous and I just would like I know like God's not a genie, but in my young mind, I just would pray like, Lord, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be doing these things. And I need you to protect me and I need a way out. Like I don't want to be in this situation and I need you to protect me. And he did protect me and I should have been probably divorced 1,000 times. I should have been pregnant before I was married. I should like all kinds of things, but the Lord did protect me and he did even though my husband and I were both a mess when we got married, he worked on our hearts and like slowly started showing us his character. And then after we got out of the cult and moved to Texas, then that's when I think he really started showing me his love for me and healing a lot of like the lies that I had believed because I was living in so much fear and so much performance based. Like my salvation, it was very much Pharisee minded, very legalistic, have to do all these things. And I think I was still saved, but I think I just, because I did not trust people, I still was seeing God as like my father, like he's mad at me all the time. And like the prophet we were under was so angry, and I was just waiting to get punished all the time. But when we were in the safest church I've been in, like so much of that was torn out of my life. And I was able to see God as loving and a protector and a comforter, which are things I never had before. And then when I was like really at my sickest and like the darkest part of my life, just when I was like in the beginning, I was being flooded with a lot of memories, and I was reading Psalm 18 a lot. I feel like that psalm's very spiritual warfare minded. Like God, like in the beginning of it, God is very close to like be the one fighting the whole battle for you. And then he slowly equips you, and then you start fighting for yourself. I mean, he's with you, but like it's like a training of how to stand firm against your enemy. And so, um, I can read a little bit of this if you're okay with it.
Yeah, please do.
So the parts that were really helpful for me, it's this is just part one through a bunch of things. I'm just going to skip around. So it says, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy around him. Thick clouds, dark with water, out of the brightness before him. Hailstones and coals of fire broke through the clouds. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then channels of the sea were seen, and the foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He sent from on high, he took me. He drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. So I wanted to read that because during that time I read that psalm all the time. And when I was really battling a lot of, like I was doing a lot of deliverance, and I definitely had a lot of demonic stuff that kept coming up and harassing me at the time. The Lord gave me a vision to, I think, really just, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but I think to hang on to what he was doing was like part of it. For me to hang on to what he was doing, what he was bringing me out of, and also to be able to look back and remind myself every time I doubt that that's what he's doing in my life. So the vision that he had given me was I was dancing with Jesus and smiling, and I took my eyes off and I looked around and I realized it was all dark, and I could see demons all around in a circle, glaring at me and kind of grasping towards me. And I was afraid. And then I looked back, and what I thought was Jesus that I was dancing with was actually Satan. And I just went, "Oh." And as soon as that happened, an angel came down and grabbed me and put me like on a scepter and started flying me straight up out of the pit and like all this black smoke was like encompassing us, or like trying to, and one angel would disappear and then another one would come and then one would disappear and another one would come, and I was like flown straight up into this, like through a barrier, and then it was like I just was like up into this bright white clear light, and it was no longer my body, but I could see like it was my spirit or something, and I saw like layer upon layer, like an onion being peeled away. And then I was laid at God's feet and restored back to wholeness, but it was like I was dead at first, but then God picked me up and put me on his lap, and I was completely restored, and he was just comforting me. And then I and that was the vision that I had, but I wanted to share that because I thought it went along really well with Psalm 18, how like you're in the darkness and then God gets angry and he's like, "No, you're not going to have them." And then he pulls you out of that and restores you and
That
puts
is
your feet on a rock.
powerful. What a vision. I wish every survivor could have that vision. That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean, I have held on to that every time I doubt myself. I'm like, remember what the Lord said he was doing. Remember what he said he was doing. Kind of like the Israelites coming out of Egypt. Like we always think if I just go back, it will be okay. But that's not what he called us into. Like he's pulling us out of slavery. Or not to go back to those things.
Right.
And those things is a false god. Like they were tricking me, and my childhood was a trick. Like they tricked me, but they didn't win.
My childhood was a trick. That's profound. That's profound. Because that's so true. And God's pulled you out of it. I mean, there's so many ways to look at that vision. That's good. Very
Yeah,
good.
so
Yeah.
he's been working on me, and he has, despite confusion, and I don't want to be so hard, like I'm pretty hard on myself a lot, and I think I am like, well, why did you do that, or you shouldn't have this or that, but like even in the midst of whether I should have or shouldn't have opened the door to my parents the second time around, God was good, and he gave me some evidence to help validate me so that I wasn't always questioning, and that is also how I ended up finding your podcast and other things, where I had just walked that journey all by myself, and I thought I was the only person who had ever gone through that, because I had never met another person until then that had ever gone through that.
That's a lonely place to be.
Yeah, it was just a very hard, very lonely place for a very long time, where I didn't ever have validation, and then just the Lord used all of that to validate me, and he's kept me safe. Right or wrong, I guess I would tell anybody, if they're thinking about engaging with family, if it's their family and anybody that was involved in it, siblings, cousins, whoever, I would just say, I think, because if they still have contact with your main abusers, I would say they're not safe, because they're probably reporting back to that person on a regular basis anything you tell them, because that's been pretty true for what my situation has been.
Yeah. We really want to hold on to family because we really want to have somebody, but
Yes.
it's a dangerous gamble.
Yeah, and I know it's so confusing, and there's so much emotion, and because you don't have, like, sometimes we just don't have physical hard evidence to, like, and there hasn't been like a police report or anything, but I think just in the long run it slows healing down the more you're involved with people like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's sad. But you gave it the chances you felt you needed to at the time. You
Yeah.
know, it's easier to go back with 2020 vision. Wish we could do our whole life that way.
Yeah,
It would be so much
exactly.
easier. Yeah.
But even in whether I did anything, I mean, I don't think I did anything wrong. I just think that even in all of that, God has shown his faithfulness of like he's protecting me anyway, despite I mean, I wasn't purposely like, hey, I'm gonna do opposite of what you tell me to do, but I think he lets us make decisions and then we learn things from them, good or bad. I think I'm just really starting to learn how to accept like they really are these people and the way they responded when I had to put down boundaries shows me that it's not about love and care. It's like there's stuff that they're hiding. So that's okay. I mean, it's okay because it's shown me more truth, I guess, and validated things, but it's definitely hard and very painful to like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just hard.
Right. Well, every intersection with an occultic family is going to hurt. It just is.
Yeah.
And we want to make them savable. And we want to think the best of them. And it doesn't make it so. And it's still going to hurt when we intersect. It's just a
Yeah.
learning process.
Yeah. I think that's the hard thing because, like, as believers, we want to like give people the benefit of the doubt, but sometimes you can't. And like when you know, once you get to a certain point and you know that somebody's dangerous, you can't really, I mean, I shouldn't say can't, but
I think we have to remember that we're not the Holy Spirit. We're not their Jesus, in that
exactly.
it's not up to us to win them over to the Lord.
Yeah, that's another thing that the Lord was really working on with me about with just coming out and like trying to shut that door because my dad was also supposedly dying at the time and I was so upset because I wanted to be able to like tell him like I want to reconcile obviously but it just wasn't happening and it just was not happening. The Lord just was really sweet to like tell me specifically it's my job to save, it's not yours, and it's not gonna come through you. It's okay to shut the door.
Good. Yeah. Especially when our mental health is at stake or protection of our family is at stake. There's a lot we have to look out for.
Yeah. And it's easy to minimize, I think, because there isn't, like it's hard in this situation because there's not a lot of validation. And so it's easy to minimize how serious it is.
Yeah, except for your dad
I
handed
think,
you a box.
yeah,
I mean, that just blows my mind. That right there blows my mind.
yeah, yeah,
I don't think you can get more validation unless you got pictures and a video of what happened to you than that box.
yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. I think there's a point where they want you to know that they know that you know, and they know that you know that they know. And there's this point that they need this understanding to happen. And I think that was his point with you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's so interesting. Why do you think that is?
I think they get to a point in their evil malevolence that they get kind of too big for their britches and they kind of gloat in their evilness and they're getting away with it. And so they make mistakes after a while. Sometimes you'll see people saying things they shouldn't say, doing things they shouldn't do. It's like, why did they do that? They're going to get caught. That makes no sense that they would say that. And so you'll see that with criminals or people as they'll get older, they'll say something insane. It's like, everybody knows you did that. Now you're saying that. That makes no sense. Like OJ Simpson, if I would have done it, this is what I would have done. When he wrote about if I had killed Nicole, this is how I would have done it, which was saying he did it, right? It's like, why would he put a
Yeah.
book out that way? That makes no sense. It's the same sort of thing.
It's wild because when my dad did that with the machine, um and the one he was threatening to shock her brains, she was like, "Oh, that's because I've been in the hospital. He was probably just doing that and then he did it to trigger you."
Yeah, he did it
And
to trigger
then
you. Absolutely.
yeah, But then it's so weird because when I told my family, like my had to call me and hear my whole story. I'm going to give you the platform so you can share whatever you want about what you say happened. And then he was like, none of that ever happened. There's never been a case of SRA that's ever existed that went to court and won. Like he had all the excuses why I was delusional. But the weird thing is that all of my siblings know why I had to shut the door because of this shock machine, and nobody mentioned the shock machine.
Well, yeah,
Like
because if you
my
give
dad just
validation, they
got
won't listen.
yeah, and my dad just got away with pulling out a shock machine, and that's okay because he's dying and you should just let a dying man die or something. I don't know. I'm like, I don't understand.
And
Like
they know
I'm
how bad
not.
he was growing up, and they're still going
Yes.
to stand up for him.
Yes.
And they know you've been truthful, and they're going to call you a liar.
Yes.
Go figure that one out right there.
So it's definitely crazy. Crazy making.
It is, but it's their crazy, not yours.
Yes.
Yep, I'll put all the crazy onto them where it belongs.
Yeah.
Because you're the truth teller, and truth tellers and families are going to get everybody turning against them, and you're going to get all the accusations. You're going to be called the liar. You're going to be called the problem in the family, the black sheep. Everybody's going to be very angry at you because you're calling out a family system that they're still abiding by and living. And many of them are going to be doing the same family systems in their families. So
Yeah.
you're the chink in the armor of this, and it's a problem. You have become a problem, but you are the one that is saying, hey, let's do something different. Let's stop this and let's be godly. Let's follow hard after God in spirit and in truth. And they're going, oh, no way will we do that. So you keep shouting, you keep speaking, you keep drawing that line, you keep those boundaries strong, and you follow after God. You're doing great. And you are not crazy. You have the mind of Christ. You're seeing things the way they really are. And that's hard to do in these families.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This was incredible. You've figured out a lot, and you have a lot of wisdom that you've gained along the way, a lot of clarity. Well done.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for coming along today. And I hope you appreciate Jessica as much as I do. Thank you for being an important part of this program. Have a great day.
Bye.
Only God could rescue me. Only God could set me free. Only God.